Okay, so you know how we sometimes get these listener questions?
Yeah.
Well, we got a really interesting one today, and it's all about this thing called Carrier 411.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny.
I heard of it.
Yeah, it's like you hear about it and you're like, okay, it's like got to do with shipping, got to do with
Trucking and logistics.
yeah,
It's,
trucking, logistics, all that stuff,
yeah,
right?
it's a whole world.
The whole world, and it can seem like a black box sometimes.
Absolutely. Super
It's
complicated.
super complicated.
Yeah.
But our listener wants to know, like, what is the big deal?
Right.
What is the big deal with Carrier 411? Why does it matter?
Yeah.
And why should they care?
I think it's a great question. And it's something that, honestly, more people in the industry should probably be aware of.
Right. Like, if you're involved in shipping in any way,
Yeah, exactly.
it's something you need to know about.
It's all about bringing that transparency and trust, right? Which is crucial when you're talking about like moving goods and money and, all these important things.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, the more information you have, the better decisions you can make.
Exactly.
All right. So let's
dive in.
dive in. And maybe we should start with the basics, just so everyone's on the same page. Like, what is Carrier 411?
Sure. So basically, Carrier 411 is this online platform, and it's specifically designed to connect those key players in the freight world, right? So we're talking shippers.
The people sending stuff.
Exactly. Shippers sending the goods, brokers who are kind of like the middlemen,
Matching.
Yeah, the matchmakers. They're connecting the shippers with the right carriers. And of course, you've got the carriers themselves, the trucking companies doing the actual transportation.
Right. Okay, so it's like a social network, but for trucking.
Kind of. But instead of sharing selfies and cat videos, they're sharing vital information about their performance, their safety records.
Oh, so it's like a report card for trucking companies.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But way more detailed than just a letter grade.
I see. So it's not just about finding the cheapest carrier. It's about finding the most reliable one.
Exactly. Reliability is huge in this industry.
Makes sense. Like, if you're shipping something important, you want to know it's going to get there on time and in one piece.
Absolutely. And that's where these carrier performance reports come in.
Okay, tell me more about this.
So basically, anyone who uses Carrier 411 can contribute to these reports, right? Like, if you're a broker and you work with a carrier, you can leave feedback about their performance.
Was the driver on time? Were there any issues?
Exactly. And all this data gets compiled into these reports, which other users can then access.
So it's like a real-time, constantly updating picture of how a carrier's doing.
Exactly. And one of the most valuable features is this thing called Carrier Watch reports.
Carrier Watch. That sounds intense.
It is. Basically, these reports flag potential red flags, like based on data shared by other users.
So, like, if a carrier has a history of late deliveries or safety violations, it's going to show up on their Carrier Watch report.
Exactly. And that's a huge warning sign for anyone looking to hire them.
Wow, that's really powerful. Like, it's not just relying on the carrier's word. You're getting real insights from people who've actually worked with them.
That's the key. Real, unfiltered feedback.
Okay, but let's say you're a carrier and you get a bad review. Is that it? Like, is your reputation ruined forever?
No, not necessarily. Carrier 411 actually has processes in place for carriers to dispute reports, provide evidence to support their case.
So it's not like a one strike and you're out kind of thing.
No, they understand that things happen, there can be misunderstandings, and sometimes things are just outside of the carrier's control.
So it's about being fair, but also transparent.
Exactly. It's about striking that balance.
Makes sense. So we've talked about performance reports, Carrier Watch, all that good stuff. But what about all the rules and regulations in the trucking industry?
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other layer.
Like insurance, safety protocols, all that stuff.
Exactly. And that's another area where Carrier 411 really shines because it helps companies stay compliant with all those regulations.
So it's like having a compliance officer built right into the platform.
Yeah, it can track things like insurance expiration dates, vehicle maintenance records, driver qualifications, all that stuff.
So it's not just about finding a reliable carrier, it's about finding a compliant one.
Absolutely. Both are equally important.
Right. Okay, so they're checking all the boxes, everything's going smoothly. But what happens when, something actually goes wrong?
Right, like an accident or a major delay.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the incident reporting feature comes in.
Oh, interesting.
So anyone involved in a shipment can report any problems they encounter, and it creates this record that's visible to everyone on the platform.
So if a carrier has a pattern of, like, late deliveries or other issues, it's going to show up.
Exactly. And this transparency is really important because it helps hold carriers accountable,
Makes sense. It also gives shippers and brokers a heads up about potential risks.
Absolutely. It's all about having that information up front so you can make the best decision for your business.
Right. So in a way, it's like having this extra layer of protection for everyone involved.
Exactly. It's about minimizing risk and maximizing efficiency.
Okay, so let's talk benefits. Why should our listener care about Carrier 411?
Well, think about it this way. Let's say you're responsible for choosing a carrier for your company's shipments.
Important job.
Very important. And you've got this huge decision to make, right? You need to find a carrier who's reliable, compliant, and who's going to handle your goods with care.
You don't want any surprises.
Exactly. And that's where Carrier 411 comes in, because it gives you access to all this valuable information that you wouldn't have otherwise.
It's like having a crystal ball, but for trucking.
Yeah, huh? Kind of. But seriously, it can help you avoid making costly mistakes.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. Let's say you're a food distributor and you need to ship refrigerated goods.
Okay, high stake.
High stakes, you find a carrier that seems great, their website looks nice, their rates are competitive, but then you check their Carrier 411 reports,
Oh,
and it turns out they have a history of temperature control issues.
thanks.
That's a huge red flag. And that one report could save you from potentially losing thousands of dollars in spoiled goods.
Wow, that's a really powerful example.
It really highlights how Carrier 411 can protect businesses from making those kinds of mistakes.
Right, so it's not just about saving money, it's about protecting your reputation, your brand, all that.
Absolutely. And beyond just avoiding disasters, it also helps things run more smoothly and efficiently.
Okay, how so?
Well, shippers and brokers can quickly find carriers that meet their specific needs, you know?
So you're not wasting time calling around, getting quotes from carriers that aren't even a good fit.
Exactly. It streamlines the whole process, so you can focus on what matters most, getting your goods where they need to go.
Okay, so we've talked about the good, but is there anything bad about Carrier 411?
Well, like with anything, there are some concerns.
Okay, what are people worried about?
Some carriers feel like it's not always fair, you know?
Like, what if you get one bad review, even if it wasn't your fault?
Exactly. They worry that one bad experience could unfairly damage their reputation.
I can see their point.
It's a lot of power for a platform to have.
So it's important to use Carrier 411 responsibly and to take everything with a grain of salt.
Absolutely. It's a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
So it's about being aware of both sides of the story.
Exactly. And it's something that Carrier 411 is constantly working on. You know, they're trying to make sure the information is as accurate and fair as possible.
Okay, so wrapping it all up, if you were responsible for choosing a carrier for your company's shipments, wouldn't you want access to this kind of information?
I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, like why wouldn't you want to know as much as possible before making such a big decision?
Exactly. We live in a data-driven world, and Carrier 411 is bringing that data to the logistics industry.
It's helping to create a more transparent, more accountable system.
And that benefits everyone in the long run.
Absolutely. Well, there you have it, folks. A deep dive into Carrier 411.
Hopefully this has given you a better understanding of what it is and why it matters.
As technology continues to reshape the world, platforms like this are only going to become more important.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another one.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.